The area covered by the forests of the Democratic Republic of Congo is gradually being transformed by slash-and-burn agriculture. At the heart of this characteristic change in land allocation, typical in Central Africa, human activities are closely integrated into the landscape.
C'est dur, très difficile. Très difficile en tout cas.
Indeed, it is not easy. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, every day, it's not easy. This country, whose land and waters contain natural resources of great value, faces all the challenges of the 21st century. Peace, stability, the fight against poverty, illiteracy, economic and social development, and the protection of the environment. Of all the riches of the country, the human resource is the most important. Investments must first be granted to the development of that resource, because it's the only path to economic development. The Congolese subsoil offers gold, diamonds, coltan, copper, petroleum and uranium. Its soil carries forests, savannas, fallow lands and fields as far as the eye can see. In this great mosaic, forests give way to fields and fields give way to cities. Forestry and agriculture provide numerous products and services. This is undeniable, and even without payslips, the informal rural and forest sector is by far the country's main employer. There will be no economic and social development without a major investment in the environmental sector. Before this strategic investment, it's necessary to provide training for executives and technicians, and to implement applied research programs.
La recherche forestière peut jouer un rôle important sous plusieurs angles. Bien sûr écologique, bien sûr un rôle dans la pérennisation des ressources, mais économique aussi, économique puisque si nous ne prenons que le secteur forestier, vous savez très bien que notre pays est potentiellement très riche en ressources forestières. 60% à 62% des ressources forestières du bassin du Congo se trouvent en RDC. Mais malheureusement, le secteur forestier ne contribue qu'à peine à 1% du PIB national. C'est dire que l'autorité est consciente de la tâche qui attend ce ministère pour faire de ces potentiels forestiers un facteur de développement économique.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the majority of agrarian systems are based on the principle of slash-and-burn agriculture. This ancestral practice consists of clearing out forest surfaces to grow manioc, corn, and sometimes rice. This type of agriculture transforms the woody resource into timber, service wood, fuel wood, and charcoal. These areas are cultivated and farmed for 1 to 2 years before returning to fallow lands for several years. Even though slash-and-burn agriculture is a traditional practice, it's not sustainable anymore, and it meets less and less the needs of the Congolese society. Indeed, this system is not only characterized by low food yields, but it also strongly damages the soil and the rest of the environment. It creates an insidious pauperization mechanism among the rural populations currently deprived of alternatives. The fuel wood in rural areas and the charcoal in urban areas are the main source of domestic energy. Traditional carbonization techniques render yields lower than 20%. The production of 1 ton of charcoal requires 5 to 6 tons of wood. The city of Kisangani alone would consume the equivalent of 200,000 cubic meters of fuel wood every year.
La ville de Kisangani, à l'image d'autres grands centres urbains en RDC, a un besoin d'approvisionnement en makala qui est très important, puisque la ville compte plus d'1,5 million d'habitants. Et le bois énergie, ça représente la principale source d'énergie domestique pour 90% de la population en RDC.
The fuel wood sector comprises about 25,000 workers and over 1 million urban consumers.
La production de makala, qui est fortement liée à l'agriculture sur brûlis, met en péril l'ensemble des espèces ligneuses qui sont présentes dans la forêt. Puisque quand un champ est ouvert en forêt, c'est quasiment l'intégralité des arbres qui sont abattus et brûlés sur place. Donc on a une disparition rapide de la ressource forestière.
Slash-and-burn agriculture and fuel wood are closely linked. On one hand, the rural world survives through subsistence agriculture, selling the occasional excess of harvest or fuel wood. On the other hand, the Congolese cities rely more and more on food importations as a result of low local yields. It's the role of applied research to find practical and realistic solutions to these problems. Scientific vulgarization and technical training have to take over from studies and support local development.
Comment bien préparer les graines, comment les planter au champ de la bonne manière.
The management of suburban landscape calls for the implementation of integrated solutions. Agriculture plays a central role in feeding the Congolese, essentially through its supply of carbohydrates and lipids. For their supply of proteins, the Congolese people rely on importations, fishing and traditional hunting. The number of captures in forest areas is high and exceeds the natural renewal rate of the animal species killed. The demand in bushmeat is increasing in cities, and hunters foresee a shortage for several species.
Oui, comparaison ezali parce que na moni ndenge to banozwa liboso na enfin 2001 2000 wana donc abondance peza banyama ezalaki mingi mais siko kwa ba chasser basi bako mingi bazo beta bango karasi baniko kota alors production est diminuée quand même ndenge to banobo.
If the hunt is traditional, it is first and foremost commercial and widespread in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Commercial hunting constitutes the first threat to animal biodiversity. Some species aren't threatened by the destruction of their habitats, but by the very high rate of captures through trapping and wild game hunting.
La population veut coûte que coûte améliorer sa situation sociale, donc son revenu. Alors, la viande produit plus, généralement ça produit plus en un coup par rapport à d'autres activités. Par exemple, l'agriculture, il doit rassembler 5 régimes de bananes pour avoir 5 000 francs. Or, s'il vendait un gibier, un antilope à 6 000 francs, c'est en un seul coup et à peu de temps. Or, les champs, il faut attendre plusieurs mois pour avoir les régimes de bananes.
Each year, over 100,000 tons of bushmeat are eaten in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Strangely, bushmeat is cheaper when the hunting season is closed.
Mwaka msu ya gari wana, tuotia na 10,000, 12,000. Congo wana ya ouverture zali, tuotia na 12,000, Babylone wana. Mais si on a fermeture, on monique, na mekomi rare, izara ritem bazo boma nyama, kubanga le mobeko à l'état, mbolo maka kubani kosomba mwana ba 5,000, 7,000.
The bushmeat sector is relatively simple: hunters, wholesalers and retailers. It's not really a hunting specialization, but more a universal know-how of the hunters, well tried and efficient. The hunting territories are more or less farmed according to opportunity and customary rights. No shooting plans or vigorous management of the hunting resources. Industrial logging is often cited as the main factor of degradation of tropical forests. It's not the case in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The area dedicated to logging has gone from 42 million hectares in 2000 to 12 million hectares in 2010. That year alone, a dozen logging companies were exporting about 170,000 cubic meters of log-equivalent wood. Traditional logging represents a volume superior to 660,000 cubic meters log equivalent. However, these harvests were very low compared to the volume of woody biomass used for energy. In conclusion, the fire from slash-and-burn agriculture and the fire to prepare meals are the main destroyers of the Congolese forest. Climate change is a global issue that requires local adaptation and alleviation solutions. The countries with important forest cover are considered important carbon reservoirs. Therefore, we have to try to maintain that forest cover, or at least minimize the rate of deforestation. The program for the reduction of emissions tied to deforestation and forest degradation, called RED+, pursues that objective.
L'autorité est consciente que si on veut gérer durablement les ressources, les importantes ressources naturelles renouvelables de l'air d'ici, il va falloir avoir des cadres très compétents et surtout des cadres universitaires pour bien mener les opérations.
The Ministry of the Environment, Conservation of Nature and Tourism comprises about 6,000 agents. Its subsidiary institution, the Congolese Institute for the Conservation of Nature, comprises over 2,000 agents. However, over 3,000 agents have reached or passed the age of retirement. This aging staff is alarming and has started a process of retirement leave. This situation exists in most universities of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where several teachers of a more than respectable age are still working.
Neuf 000 étudiants pour plus ou moins 130, 140 professeurs. Et le ratio est encore très faible. Et il faut l'améliorer. Nous avons fait de la relève, de la formation des professeurs, un de nos objectifs stratégiques. Et nous sommes en train d'évoluer, je crois, positivement bien dans ce sens-là, en produisant des professeurs localement comme à l'étranger, ceux qui ont la chance d'aller à l'étranger, ils nous reviennent avec une formation solide pour qu'eux aussi à leur tour puissent former d'autres. Et tout cela, nous le faisons aussi avec la collaboration de nos partenaires extérieurs.
Taking care of the relief is a double challenge. On the one hand, the loyal state servers have to be able to enjoy the legal privileges of their retirement. On the other hand, the new recruits have to prevail themselves of a training adapted to their future duties.
Autant nous pouvons nous féliciter du travail qui est abattu depuis bientôt 50 ans dans notre université, autant nous devons nous dire qu'on a encore beaucoup de choses à faire pour poursuivre la quête de l'amélioration de la qualité de la formation que nous donnons à nos étudiants. Et c'est un exercice de tous les jours.
In order to combine the needs of forest research with the needs of university teachers, the forest component of the RIA4 and RIFORCO projects, implemented by the University of Kisangani and the SCI4 with the resources of the European Union, has allowed a reinforcement of the local competences.
Je peux avouer que nous ne sommes pas suffisamment préparés pour aborder les nouvelles disciplines, notamment les changements climatiques. Nous avons eu la chance, grâce au Fonds de l'Union européenne, donc d'être appuyés d'abord par le projet RIAFOR et ensuite par le projet RIFORCO. Bon, cette formation est basée sur la gestion durable. Oui, donc en fait il s'agit de l'étude de la biodiversité et la gestion durable des forêts.
Over 50 people have acquired a master's degree in biodiversity management and sustainable forest planning. And about 30 PhD candidates have received financial support and an international scientific guidance.
Les projets donc REAFOR et REFORCO donc contribuaient d'abord pour faire des formations au niveau des masters pour donc dans les domaines de biodiversité, aménagement forestier durable. Et donc les premiers lots de gens formés ont obtenu des bourses pour continuer les doctorats. Et certains sont déjà des docteurs maintenant et vont bientôt être nommés professeurs. Il y a, je crois, 2 qui sont même déjà nommés professeurs. Donc ça a constitué pour nous un apport de ce côté-là, de la relève et de la formation avec une équipe pédagogique renforcée par les partenaires du Nord. Et ça a permis de cette façon-là de changer aussi énormément donc la façon d'enseigner, la façon de faire la recherche de façon un peu standardisée suivant des normes plus, on peut dire, internationales.
In addition to these training courses leading to a university diploma, some short training courses are organized and are specifically oriented towards public agents.
On essaye de faire des formations de mise à niveau. Alors c'est ainsi que nous recrutons, nous ciblons les gens pour faire des formations ad hoc. Par exemple, en matière d'éducation environnementale, nous voyons les ONG, comment transmettre ça aux populations, etc.
Donc l'objectif de la formation, c'est vraiment bien comprendre, j'aurais pu mettre renforcer les notions, vraiment les notions clés de statistiques descriptives.
This punctual reinforcement of skills completes the third cycle education, because its applied nature favors an immediate interface between science and development. According to the World Bank, the population of Congo has more than tripled in only 40 years. In 2010, there were over 66 million Congolese in the Democratic Republic, of which 80% lived with less than $2 per day. The social and economic indicators are low, pointing out a number of difficulties that the Congolese people have to face.
Magumu yangu iko hapa juu ya pori. Mambo juu sie bakaaji bakuwa tena mingi. Tulikuwa zani kama leta atatupatia nusu ya sehemu ya poli. Mais sasa leta anauza ile poli ile ilikuwa merci. Ndio magumu tuko a reglete sana, tulikuwa pata mambeko yetu pale. Bambinjo yetu, mamiti yetu, mais poli yetu inakuwa sasa mbali. Ndio magumu yetu kabisa, magumu tuko na shida ngufu sana juu ya poli yetu.
Research is an important vector of development. In a country that relies greatly on its forests and its agriculture to build the foundation for a better future, it's paramount to support agriculture and forest research. In order to do so, we have to organize outreach actions for good practice.
Nous avons besoin pas de recherche fondamentale au niveau du ministère de l'Environnement, beaucoup plus de recherches appliquées qui puissent conduire un certain nombre, surtout conduire un certain nombre de travaux de terrain. Et pour dire que la recherche, nous en avons besoin, mais sous le format recherche appliquée.
Il faut donner à la recherche sa place à l'université, parce que c'est à travers la recherche que l'université doit être à mesure d'apporter des solutions aux problèmes qui se posent dans la société congolaise. Elle a été créée pour ça.
In 2005, the Sci4 and the FAO made a diagnostic of the forest research capacity in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It was close to non-existent, even though the country's forests and savannas cover close to 60 million hectares, representing more than half of the world's largest tropical forest after the Amazon. According to the Observatory of Forests in Central Africa, agricultural lands cover less than 10% of the national territory, while forests cover more than 66%. Over 4,700 animal species and over 11,000 plant species have been reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A complete inventory of this biodiversity hasn't yet been made, and certain species will have gone extinct before being discovered.
On n'a pas assez de ressources humaines et on n'a pas non plus de ressources, des équipements adéquats pour mener des recherches dans le domaine des changements climatiques.
The protected areas and national parks cover more than 34 million hectares. The needs of agricultural research, and particularly forest research, interest many Congolese and foreign researchers.
Les personnels scientifiques, les personnels académiques ici dans notre pays sont en nombre insuffisant et il y a peu de femmes. Si je prends par exemple l'exemple de l'université de Kisangani, il n'y a que 3 femmes dans toute l'université. Alors j'ai pensé que c'était intéressant de poursuivre les programmes pour que je sois un modèle pour les autres filles et aussi pour rendre service au pays.
For decades, the actors of the rural world and the forest sector have developed survival mechanisms adapted to the particularly harsh conditions. The climate, the soils and the forests of the Democratic Republic of Congo are generous, and still the farmers suffer, and the vast majority of city dwellers have to satisfy their basic needs with imported products and services, expensive compared to the local purchasing power. The current techniques for the use of renewable natural resources represent a bottleneck in the economic development process of the country. The intensification and modernization of agriculture will lessen the workload of the farmers and increase their living standards. This progress will significantly reduce the pressure on natural forests and their biodiversity. Wood fuel and charcoal will remain for a long time to come the two main sources of energy for the city and the countryside. This tendency has to be encouraged because it relies on renewable resources. The challenge will be to ensure the sustainable and sufficient production of fuel wood. The current and upcoming reforms in the agricultural sector could favor animal production. While waiting for the positive impacts of these changes, the Congolese people will have to depend in short and medium term on bushmeat and traditional fishing for their source of proteins. Also, non-woody forest products and products other than timber will not be easily replaced. For cultural and socio-economic reasons, rural and city populations will continue to use a variety of products coming from the forest. Fruits, leaves, bark, roots, creepers, reptiles and insects. These animals and plants, edible or not, abundant or rare, all have their usefulness. Logging will increase in the next few years because the demand of the region and the northern countries is increasing. The timber resource is relatively poor in terms of volume per hectare, but the areas are very important. Here again, these resources will be more and more solicited. The announced alleviation and adaptation strategies for climate change have raised many questions and awoken hope. The natural forest carbon reservoir represents over 27 billion tons, and its capture capacity is even higher. If the implementation of the strategies against climate change means that a minimum forest surface area has to be maintained, then the efforts in favor of a sustainable forest management, including agroforestry solutions, have to be pursued and even increased. The University of Kisangani and its numerous partners, which include the Center for International Forest Research, are developing and multiplying research activities and training to constitute a national and even regional pole of expertise. In order to correctly manage national renewable resources, it's vital to know them well and understand their dynamic. There lies the complex link between the researcher and the farmer, between the university and society.